Hello, Black Eagles, and welcome back to the Black Eagles YouTube show. Today we're going to talk about one of Beşiktaş's potential transfer targets, Felix Uduokhai. That sounds like a name straight out of Lord of the Rings. And here to talk to us about Felix Uduokhai is Kevin Hatchard from the Bundesliga English coverage. Kevin, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, great to be with you.
Kevin, if I'd ask you to answer me from the top of your head, what type of player is Felix Uduokhai?
Yeah, I think what's interesting about him is that when you go back to when he first broke through at 1860 Munich, he was seen as a rising star. And I think he's had a very solid career so far. I mean, this is a guy who is tall and strong, well over 6 foot, good in the air, brings the ball out nicely from the back, good passer of the ball. But he hasn't quite hit the heights that some thought he would when he first made that breakthrough and he first got the big move to Wolfsburg. So I think still a really solid Bundesliga pro, lots of experience, has had a few injuries, but in general, a player that, is still relatively young, still has a lot of time to maybe develop even more. But certainly if he came to Beşiktaş, I think would be a really, really exciting signing, actually.
And of course, you've seen other players that have played for Beşiktaş in the past, like Marcelo Guedes, who wasn't really known as a particularly strong defender on the ball, not a really good player to build up from the back. How would you say Felix Uduokhai compares to Marcelo in terms of build-up play? Because you already highlighted there that he is a decent passer of the ball.
Yeah, I think if you look at some of the teams he's played for, that wasn't always a priority necessarily, but he's certainly not somebody that's ever stood out as not being comfortable on the ball. He's got that left-footed ability, which obviously opens up a fair few angles. And so it's not known as his greatest strength, but it's certainly not a weakness. It's certainly something he's capable of doing. And I think you look at the fact that he's played at all the youth groups for Germany. He played for Germany at the Olympics. You don't do that unless you have that technical ability to go with all of the defensive building blocks that he already has. So, yeah, I think in terms of doing that job and being able to pass out from the back, I certainly don't think he'd let anyone down in that regard.
And of course, Beşiktaş have been strongly linked with a player who is famous for his build-up play from the back. That is Mats Hummels, who is departing at Borussia Dortmund this summer. Not quite at that level I'm taking
No.
in terms of build-up.
No, and Hummels is exceptional at that, and we know that and has been for a long time. No, you're not going to see outside of the boot passes that go 50 yards right onto a winger's foot. That's not going to happen. I wouldn't have thought. But as I say, certainly, competent on the ball, doesn't get caught in possession very often, and I think really what it's about with him is the attributes that he is very good at, and strong tackler, very good in the air, dependable defender, doesn't make too many mistakes. The only thing that's really held him back in recent years, I guess, is some of the injuries. He's had a few injuries here and there. I think he was a bit unlucky when he was at Wolfsburg. His first season was very promising there, but by the time of his second season, Bruno Labbadia went for a pairing of John Brooks and Robin Knocker, who were both very, very solid centre-backs. And so Uduokhai couldn't really get in. And so he ended up making the move elsewhere to Augsburg, initially on loan. And then Augsburg paid a fair chunk of money for him, actually, to bring him in on a permanent basis. And he's been very solid for them. So you're talking about a guy who is still mid-20s, but has racked up a lot of Bundesliga experience. Doesn't have a huge amount of experience on the continental level, that's fair to say, because Augsburg, have only ever qualified once for Europe in their history. So playing for Beşiktaş would be a very different scenario. in terms of, you know, their involvement in Europe. That's every single season, and there are expectations. But I think he'd relish that.
Do you think it would be a weird career move for him because he is still only 26? Perhaps there's higher profile Bundesliga clubs who might be interested. He was at Beşiktaş over the week apparently. This was kept very quiet, hush-hush. But he was already apparently shown the facilities and everything and seemed to be impressed. Do you think it would be a good career move for him?
Well, I think the Turkish Super League is changing in terms of being a destination for players who are on the younger end of things. I know we know it as a league that often picks up very experienced players. There's a financial incentive as well. We know that clubs are able to, to spend decent money on bringing players in. And I think it's certainly more of a fit. I mean, you look at, funnily enough, somebody who was at Wolfsburg as well. That Weghorst had a spell there and really enjoyed it, didn't he? And played well. So, you know, I think it is becoming a more attractive destination for the younger end of players. You've still got, you know, guys like Edin Dzeko, Dusan Tadic, guys at that end of the spectrum doing well in Turkey. But I think, you know, some of these kind of mid-age players, if you like, mid-20s, late 20s, are starting to get attracted towards it.
Yeah. And then finally, a player you think that can really be a building block for the team going forward, should he come?
Yeah, I think what he is very steady. I think he's a very reliable player. You know, when I think of all the games I've done of Augsburg and before that Wolfsburg when he was involved, I don't remember too many errors, really. I don't remember too many moments where he was caught in possession on the edge of his own box. He's not going to score you many goals, I'll tell you that much. He's certainly not going to do that. Although he did actually score for Germany at the Olympics, actually, against Saudi Arabia, I seem to remember. But if you want a solid, dependable centre-back who is competent in possession, tackles well, wins the ball really well in the air, he's excellent in the air, then he's your man.
Actually, I have one more question from one of our viewers, and that was whether or not you think he can develop into becoming a defensive leader, if he can be the man to take the other defenders by the hands if necessary, so to speak.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think if you look at the defences he's generally played in with Augsburg, the leaders tended to be Jeffrey Halverleu, who's a kind of experienced Dutch centre-back. But Uduokhai absolutely, I think, could play that role. He's experienced, he can be vocal. And I think he's somebody that he's not necessarily a ranter and a raver. He's not screaming at everybody. He's not fist pumping every time he makes a defensive challenge. But I think he'd very much lead by example. So, yeah, I think with his experience, that he could definitely grow into that kind of role.
All right. Thank you very much, Kevin, for your time and for giving us your expert insights on Felix Uduokhai from Augsburg. And thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And stay tuned for more.